Okay, let's dive in. Today, we're going deep into something that feels a bit like a puzzle across time.
Absolutely. It's fascinating stuff.
We're exploring insights from two, well, pretty major historical figures separated by centuries. You've got Baba Vanga, the blind Bulgarian mystic. People often link her to predictions about big events like 9/11, Brexit, things like that.
Right. And then there's Nostradamus, the 16th century French seer, famous for writing in those really cryptic verses, those quatrains.
Exactly. Now, the core idea we're looking at from the information available is this, well, pretty remarkable nation. That both of these figures, Vanga and Nostradamus, across time, different cultures, they might have left clues that interpreters think point to one single country.
Yeah, a specific nation. Its destiny, it seems, somehow tangled up in their visions of the future.
And what's really compelling, as some analyses suggest, is that this isn't viewed as just random chance or, vague symbols lining up.
No, it's presented more like a genuine convergence, like they might have been tapping into or seeing aspects of the same global path.
And this country they supposedly point to. The interpretations describe it as, like, always in the shadows of their prophecies, painted with paradoxes wrapped up in warnings. Very mysterious.
Cloaked in metaphor.
Yeah. And these interpretations, the ones we're examining, they actually land on a specific country. A conclusion that honestly might surprise you when you first hear it in this context.
Definitely raises an eyebrow initially.
So our goal here in this deep dive is really to help you understand what the information presented suggests is important. We're going to unpack the ideas, the connections people are drawing, the reasoning behind these interpretations.
Exactly. We're just looking at the information itself, exploring the patterns and themes it highlights about these visions and what they might imply.
Right. It's about examining those threads that some believe connect these two figures and understanding the logic used to suggest why they might have both focused in their own unique ways on this particular nation.
So where do we start? Baba Vanga.
Yeah, let's kick off with the clues linked to Baba Vanga. Even though she was based in Eastern Europe, reports suggest she talked a lot about a mysterious land. Never named it outright, though.
And her descriptions were often contradictory, weren't they? Like calling it a bearer of both light and ashes, a place with huge spiritual energy, but also like super advanced technology.
Exactly. And the analyses suggest her followers believe she saw this country becoming prominent during a time of major global, well, chaos. Think converging natural disasters, social upheaval, economic shifts.
And the timing itself feels relevant, given current events.
There's this one quote attributed to her, supposedly from 1979, that really stands out in these analyses. From the east, a red sun will rise, but the light will fall to the west. The land of shifting stones will hold the seed.
The land of shifting stones.
Yeah, that phrase is highlighted as maybe a key identifier. Why would this place, described that way, hold the seed for the future? Survival, or maybe even destruction.
Well, and that immediately brings up the big question with interpreting prophecy, doesn't it? Are these terms purely symbolic, metaphorical, or do they actually contain literal geographic clues, cultural markers you can pin to real places?
Right.
The interpretation we're discussing leans towards the latter. It actively tries to connect these cryptic bits to actual nations.
Okay, so let's bring Nostradamus into this. His quatrains, notoriously difficult. Like dense, poetic riddles.
Oh, absolutely. Some people just dismiss them as way too vague to predict anything concrete.
But the analysis we're looking at suggests that vagueness might have been intentional. Maybe to hide the real meaning from just anyone glancing at it.
A kind of coded language, perhaps. One quatrain that gets highlighted is Century 8, verse 85. It goes, "The great empire shall be moved by the winds, a child of the dragon shall rise and fall, but one in the land of storms, and steel shall hold the key to the world's fate."
The land of storms and steel. Okay, that phrase jumps out, doesn't it? Especially when you put it next to Vanga's paradoxical description.
It really does.
The analysis asks, could this land of storms and steel be the same country Vanga was talking about with her cryptic terms?
And it pushes further, asking what great empire is being moved, which child of the dragon rises and falls. The interpretation suggests both seers, centuries apart, might be hinting at the same big geopolitical shift or highlighting one nation's critical role in it all, like they shared some kind of vision.
It seems like when mystics try to describe nations or powers across time, they rarely just spell it out right.
It's definitely not straightforward.
The analyses suggest we need to look beyond the surface, look at the characteristics described. So Baba Vanga, from her Eastern European viewpoint, reportedly focused on distant powers, but also warned about global shifts coming.
And Nostradamus, based in Western Europe, often wrote about France, Rome, sure, but also seemed to allude to big things happening originating from the East.
So what emerges as a really striking connection point in these interpretations is that both figures seem to repeatedly mention a place that experiences both intense technological progress and profound natural chaos.
Yes. A country seen as caught, almost literally, between spirituality and machinery. That's a phrase that comes up.
Yeah, a land marked by huge disasters, but also driving global innovation, holding a unique spiritual outlook. A place where, according to this interpretation, religion, science, power dynamics, they all intertwine in ways that could be critical for the world.
And the conclusion reached in the analysis, after sifting through all these clues, these characteristics attributed by both seers, is that there's really only one country that seems to consistently fit all these descriptions.
Okay, this is where it gets really interesting. According to this synthesis of interpretations, the country that many studying these prophecies quietly believe both Baba Vanga and Nostradamus were cryptically pointing to, using all these layered descriptions, is Japan.
Japan. Yeah, it might sound surprising at first, but then the analysis starts breaking it down, systematically tracing the signs, the specific predictions linked to each seer, and arguing how they align with Japan's unique history and character.
Right, like Baba Vanga reportedly talked about a land suffering great water tragedies, nuclear darkness, yet somehow rising again to lead a kind of spiritual shift. She described cities with glowing veins, ancient traditions clashing with robotic minds.
And when you connect that to the pattern the analysis points out, it points pretty strongly towards Japan, doesn't it? A nation uniquely marked by Hiroshima and Nagasaki, that nuclear history.
Absolutely.
And then the Fukushima disaster, a massive water tragedy directly tied to nuclear issues.
And think about modern Japan. That juxtaposition the analysis highlights. Ancient Shinto shrines right next to cutting-edge AI labs, Zen monks and automated systems, a society constantly balancing deep tradition with incredibly rapid tech advancement. It's a nation that's seen destruction on a huge scale, yet has bounced back, reinvented itself time and again.
Which lines up perfectly with that argument about being caught between spirituality and machinery, touched by disaster, but also a hub of global innovation.
Okay, but what about Nostradamus? His mention of a child of the dragon rising and falling. Many assume that's China.
Right, that's a common interpretation. But the analysis points out that in Japanese folklore, dragons are also incredibly powerful central figures, often linked to water, power, very revered.
Interesting. And the phrase storms and steel.
Well, the analysis suggests thinking about Japan's turbulent history, particularly its wartime past the storms, and then its incredible resilience, its industrial and technological rebirth, the steel, rising from devastation to become this highly advanced, mechanized society.
So could it be, as this line of thinking suggests, that both prophets were using their own symbolic languages to describe Japan's extraordinary path, its deep falls, its remarkable rebirths, and maybe its unique influence on humanity's future?
The analysis even brings up another kind of chilling prediction attributed to Vanga, that a black sun would rise over the land of paper and wind.
Black sun, paper, and wind. What's the take on that?
Interpretations vary, of course, but the one we're examining suggests it could be a poetic reference to Japan's nuclear shadow, the black sun, paired with its deep cultural heritage, art, literature, mythology, the paper and wind.
Wow. Okay. There's even a note supposedly found among our things that gets highlighted. The crane will cry as the mountain moves, the people will forget, then remember.
Right, and the crane. It's a huge national symbol for Japan, right? Deeply embedded in the culture.
Absolutely.
The mountain could be Fuji, the iconic peak, or maybe a metaphor for the ancient culture itself, stirring. And that phrase, when people forget and then remember, the analysis suggests that echoes history repeating, or maybe a nation rediscovering something vital from its past.
This is where the analysis really brings it into the present day, encouraging you to think about these connections in today's world. It points out how Japan has weathered catastrophes, bombings, economic crashes, natural disasters.
Always emerging scarred, yes, but clearly not broken. Demonstrably resilient.
And Baba Vanga supposedly spoke of a silent people who would eventually speak up or rise when the world got most chaotic. So in our current turbulent times, shifting global power, AI and robotics transforming everything, massive environmental challenges. The analysis argues you just can't overlook Japan's unique experience and position as potentially very significant.
According to this interpretation, while the prophets didn't, rate Japan explicitly, their combined descriptions, all the metaphors, the symbols, they're argued to fit only Japan in such a comprehensive way.
The analysis also points to some interpretations of their timeline, suggesting both seers talked about a pivotal moment, sometimes called beyond midnight or the 13th hour, a time when humanity's fate would be heavily influenced by decisions made or forces unleashed in the East.
There's a quote attributed to Vanga. They will look to the old empire for new ways. In silence they create what others destroy.
And Nostradamus added somewhere else, when the eye of the moon rests on the twin hills, the sleeping sword will awaken.
Very evocative.
The analysis asks, isn't this deeply symbolic of Japan's position? Looking to its own history, old empire, for new directions, its relatively quiet global profile. In silence they create.
And particularly that idea of its dormant military power, restrained since World War II, the sleeping sword, potentially stirring again in this uncertain world.
Which leads naturally to the big question. If this analysis is onto something, if Japan is indeed pivotal according to these visions, what does that imply for the future?
Right. What are the potential outcomes?
Could the land of cranes and cherry blossoms, symbol of fleeting beauty, become a sanctuary in global chaos? Or could it be the spark that ignites more conflict?
Could its blend of spirituality and tech lead to a new era of consciousness? Or could it be tragically caught up in, maybe even central to, a new cycle of devastation?
The analysis presents these not just as abstract prophecies, but as urgent prompts, really. Invitations to pay closer attention to patterns, to history, and to listen to what's happening beneath the surface of current events.
And what's really thought-provoking is how the analysis connects these ideas to philosophical concepts deep within Japanese culture itself, like the cherry blossoms.
Yeah.
They bloom so briefly, right? Their incredible beauty is emphasized by how temporary they are. Just like time itself.
That brings in mono no aware, doesn't it? That Japanese concept, that deep, almost bittersweet awareness of how things pass, how transient everything is.
Exactly. And the analysis poses the idea. Could that concept actually be the key to what Vanga Nostradamus saw? That maybe the world, facing all this uncertainty, will finally wake up to the fragility of things, and maybe learn from Japan how to honor what inevitably passes away.
Or the flip side. Did they maybe see Japan as a catalyst whose beauty and cultural depth could be masking immense, maybe dormant powers, an aesthetic veil over forces that could be unleashed?
A cautionary note, yeah.
So according to the synthesis of the information we've looked at, if Vanga's visions held genuine insight, and if Nostradamus' quatrains really do align in the ways these analyses suggest, then maybe we are on the edge of something huge and uncertain.
A moment where the world faces critical choices.
And the analysis concludes that, based on its interpretation, the place discussed, Japan, stands symbolically, or maybe even literally, at a really significant crossroads.
It leaves us with that powerful overarching question drawn from these interpretations. In the face of these global shifts, will the ancient wisdom, the cutting-edge technology, the quiet endurance, and, the potential for storm within this nation, will it all come together as a force for peace or for destruction?
And that question the analysis suggests isn't just for mystics or historians anymore. It's something for all of us to consider deeply. For you.
Definitely food for thought.
And that brings us to the end of this deep dive. We've explored these fascinating ideas, these interpretations, linking Baba Vanga and Nostradamus to Japan, based on the collection of insights we examined.
So reflecting on it all, what stands out most to you from these potential connections and the interpretations presented here?
Well, the suggestion is that these aren't just old stories or historical quirks, right? They're presented as potential invitations to be more aware, maybe study patterns in history and culture, and listen. Listen closely to what might be happening just beneath the surface of global events right now.
Yeah, consider those ideas presented about beauty potentially masking danger, or that profound concept of embracing fragility, mono-aware, being somehow central to understanding where the world is headed.
How might these perspectives, which the interpretation suggests are relevant from these visions, how might they inform how you look at current global events, future uncertainties?
Because the analysis leaves us right there with that potent question. Will ancient wisdom and modern tech merge into peace or into destruction? And it states, from its perspective, that the place discussed stands at that critical crossroads. It's certainly something